My name is Professor Tim, and I'm going to be taking you through this webinar tonight. I'm a visiting professor of international management at the university, and I'm also local, so we'll look after the DBA program locally as well. So what we're going to do before we get to the DBA program is just say a little bit about the university and where it's located. And for those of you who have been to the UK, you'll find that the town of Northampton is about 100 miles north of London, about an hour by train, and it's an old historic town. And it is there that you'll find the University of Northampton. And the campus is now right in the middle of the town. It opened in 2018. You see a good photo of it, or part of it there. It's a very nice, expensive green campus right in the middle of the University of Northampton. And also there you'll find the Senate building. And on one of those floors, it's the postgraduate research student space. So that's a space you can go at any time you want if you're ever in Northampton or on campus and do your work. The university itself, you can find all sorts of information about it on its own website. But as a very brief introduction, education in Northampton dates back to about the 13th century, and the modern origins of the University of Northampton begin in about the 1920s. And it's got about 14,000 students and 1,500 staff. But what I want to get to and what we're here to talk about is the Doctorate of Business Administration program, the DBA. So first of all, what is a doctorate? Well, a doctorate is considered a terminal degree, meaning it's the highest degree that you can attain. Now, there are some exceptions to that. For example, there are some postdoctoral certificates and things that can be done, but generally speaking, it goes bachelor's, master's, and doctorate. And when you get to the doctorate level, there's two types of doctorates you can do. One are called professional doctorates, and those are for people who primarily work in a profession. So if you're a doctor of medicine, you'd get an MD, which is a professional doctorate of medicine. If you're an engineer, you could do a doctorate in engineering. If you're an education professional, you can get a doctorate in education. Pharmacy, they can get a doctorate of pharmacy for the pharmacists. And of course, the professional doctorate for business and management people is the DBA, the Doctorate of Business Administration. So those are for people who are primarily involved within a profession. The other type of doctorate is people who are primarily involved with research and academics. And the most usual type of research doctorate you've probably heard about is a PhD. So, and for those people, they're usually found in universities, research centres, that type of thing. So there are two types of doctorates. They're both at the same level, they're both academically equivalent, and they're both actually research-based degrees, but they just differ in their audiences and their aims. For example, a DBA, a professional doctorate, needs to have a very practical outcome, whereas a research doctorate could just be a purely theoretical piece. And of course, both confer upon the title doctor. And on this side here, I've just put what is a Doctor of Business Administration, a quote from all business schools rather, which I just think nicely sums up the differences between what a professional doctorate is and what a PhD program is. So it says a PhD program in business focus intensively on preparing candidates to conduct highly specialized scholarly research. They focus on the development of new theory in management, economics, and related fields. Most PhD in business administration graduates lead to careers in university researchers and professors or as senior researchers in business and government. And then on the other side, the DBA programs, the professional doctorate, focus on the application of theory rather than on the development of new theory. The DBA, because of its focus on the application of theory, has more practical application than the PhDs do. So I think that just nicely makes the difference clear. And the sorts of topics that our students do on the DBA, and I've just chosen a selection here. It can be anything business and management. So these are students, current and former, who have graduated. We have looked at things like a critical examination of a performance management system, leadership styles, corporate governance, some value chains, reasons for investing in startups, project conflicts. There's a marketing one on perceptions of luxury goods, and one on knowledge transfer and management training. So as you can see, it's the whole range. It can be anything business and management, from the traditional sort of marketing, HRM, OB, finance, accounting, to social responsibility, ethics, risk, big data, whatever it might be. Any of them can potentially make a DBA topic. And how the workshops, how the program's taught. And just by the way, the next intake starts on the 9th to the 12th of November. That's when the first workshop will be. And that's the 16th intake. And we run 2 intakes a year. So that means we've been going for quite a long time now, isn't it? About 8 years for the Middle East-based students. And how it's taught is that the first 2 years are workshops where you'll learn all about research methods and everything you need to know, which then leads on to the next 2 years, which is when you do your thesis, the professional research. And those are the 6 modules that you do in the first 2 years. So you'll come, your first module will be Induction, Principles of Research, that's for 4 days. And then about 4 months later, you do the next module. About 4 months later, you do the next, etc., till you're finished. So you do the face-to-face workshops, then there's lots of tasks and different things and support from the tutors online until you get onto your next workshop. Then you get to the thesis stage where you have your supervision and you actually do your research project. During the modules, there's all sorts of different assessment types, essays, seminar, presentation and debate, portfolios, research reports, whatever. There's no exams because they don't really fit at this level of study. You need to be more reflective and analytical in your thinking rather than just remembering things. So depending on the module, there's all sorts of different assessment methods, which your tutors will tell you all about. And then when you get to that thesis stage, that's a 40,000 word thesis. And then that's assessed by a viva voce examination, which means oral examination, which is the only time you need to go to the University of Northampton. There's lots of support on the program. There's the international DBA program leader who you meet at the application stage. You meet that person at the interviews. Every module has an expert tutor. When you get to the thesis stage, you'll have a director of studies and 2 supervisors. There's Northampton and local administration. The virtual learning environment we use for this is called the Northampton Integrated Learning Environment. Let me just show you what that looks like. It's just a screenshot of it. But you can see from the screenshot, it's really got everything for every module is put on one of these things. All the activities, where you submit assignments, where you communicate with tutors and all that different type of thing. And there's also a very extensive online library that'll have all you need to be able to conduct your research and complete your modules. It's also worth noting that the university has a graduate school as well, and this is there for all doctoral students or all postgraduate researchers. And the graduate school organises all sorts of things, such as an extensive programs of face-to-face and online training courses that can help you further. You have the DBA course, but then there's all sorts of other courses that the graduate school offers that you can just do voluntarily should you wish, such as SPS, which is a quantitative analysis tool, or in vivo, which is qualitative analysis. So there's a whole lot of other things you can tap into as well. Let's just have a look at the entry requirements. So fairly standard, a master's degree in a business-related subject, ideally completed within the last 10 years, a minimum of 5 years work experience, at least some of which will be a senior level, and be employed in a leadership management role capable of supporting the achievement of learning outcomes. All that means is that a lot of what you do in the facilitator modules, you'll be reflecting upon or looking at your own managerial practices and workplaces. So you need to be employed in a situation where that's possible. So the application requirements, fairly standard: CV, a personal statement, which would just tell you a little bit about yourself and why you want to do a DBA, not a PhD, and what your motivation is for doing the program, what your career ambitions are, those types of things. 2 references, your degree certificates and transcripts. You'll only need evidence of English language if you're asked for it. If your master's was in English, for example, you wouldn't be. And then if all that goes well, you'll also, I should also mention, you submit with those documents a research proposal. I'll mention more about that in a moment, but it's only about 1,000 words and it just outlines what you're thinking of researching. And if that goes well, you'll be invited for an interview with 2 people at Northampton, the program leader and somebody who's an expert in your field. And here's just a bit more information on the research proposal. Why is it required? Well, there's three main reasons. We want to know, the admissions team wants to know if the applicant is capable of studying at doctoral level. Does the proposed research fit with the nature of a DBA? So is it practical? Is it a business management topic? That type of thing. And does the university have an appropriate supervisor? Now, it has supervisors for all the main areas of business and management, but if you chose something very, very niche, it's possible this could happen. So don't choose something too narrow. Make sure it's fairly wide. And what do they look for in a proposal? Can it make a practical contribution to business and management? Can the applicant reference? Can they write a brief literature review? Do they have a basic understanding of research methods? And of course, all business and management master's graduates should already have those skills. So just a few last words for my presentation. The program fees, have a look at the Stafford Global website for the current program fees, because they can change intake to make sure you're getting the correct fees. But you will notice for this type of a program, which is a fly-in faculty taught program, it is a very reasonable. So last few things from me. Why should you do a DBA at Northampton? Because it's an investment in your future, both in academic and professional fields. It's the highest qualification in business and management. It means you can contribute to business and management practice. It would be expected that your thesis will be published in the academic journal article. There's international and local supervision support and workshops from leading faculty. Just a final word from me. Completion of the Northampton DBA will set you apart as an expert able to lead and manage at the highest levels. You'll have made a unique contribution to your field and developed outstanding analytical, critical, creative and reflective skills so needed in today's business world. I feel like it sets you apart as an expert, as a consultant, as a business leader, as a board member, whatever it might be. All right, then, let's have a look up. See, I've got a few questions here, so let me just finish off by having a look what we've got. And any questions, just type in that question box. It's the easiest way to do it. All right, let me see what I've got. Okay, first question, can I attend the workshops in the UK? Now, we hold the workshops in the United Arab Emirates, and that's where you need to attend them, because there's no guarantee that the UK workshops will be at the same time or the same order as the UAE ones. So you need to stick with your intake. Are there any scholarships or grants available? Please have a chat to your very knowledgeable academic consultant at Stafford, who will let you know if there is anything available. This next one's about the research proposal, and can you support me with this? Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, you need a research proposal of about 1,000 words, and then and what we do is have an initial think about what you might be interested in researching. Most people tend to do things in their own industry, in their own profession, of course. So if you're a HRM person, you might be thinking about working arrangements or flexible working or remote working or anything, something like that. If you're a marketing person, you might be thinking about something in digital marketing or branding or whatever else. Just have an initial think about what you think is a real issue that needs research in your profession. Then do some research, just some basic online research, and start coming up with some ideas that you can put on the research area form. And then what they'll do is you'll send it to your consultant Stafford, who will then send it to me, and I can have a look and help you, give you some comments about it. Next question is this: why is the DBA 4 years and some I've seen are 3 years long? Yes, it's possible. I have seen some 3-year DBA degrees as well, but I would think if anyone did a 3-year degree and actually DBA and actually finished in 3 years, I would be remarkably surprised. I mean, they might say it's 3 years long, but it's very different to when you actually finish. You really need the 4 years. I mean, it takes 2 years for the modules, and then when you actually get onto that thesis, you really do need that time. There's no point in trying to make things go any quicker. You may as well get there and make sure you finish. Got a question here from Hassan saying, I missed the first slide. Oh, some of the topics that have been researched upon. Yeah, let me go back. So these are topics that have actually been done by, here we are. by our students on the program. As I say, some of them are finished, some of them are current students, and I've just selected them to show what a range of different topics they are. As I say, you see here, there's performance management, there's leadership, there's corporate governance, value chains, finance, project management, marketing. And the last one was a student of mine who looked at knowledge transfer and management training situations. So really, it can be anything business management. Just one more question then. Oh, what are the specializations or expertise that Northampton carries? Northampton's got a large business school, so it has expertise in all the main areas of business and management. They can think of, marketing, HRM, OB, finance, accounting, logistics, supply chain, all of that different types of things. So generally speaking, you need to think of your particular area that you want to study, come up with some ideas, and it's very likely that you'll find some sort of a supervisor there who will know about it. So there's nothing in particular I can tell you that they can't supervise unless you came up with something very specific and narrow. But as I say, if you have ideas, get it down on a proposal, send it to your consultant at Stafford, and they'll send it to me and I can have a look. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Couple more questions. Do you accept exemptions on the DBA? Not for this program, because DBA programs at different universities are so different that it's very hard to map the modules together, like you might be able to do in an MBA program. For example, if you're doing a finance module and an MBA in one university, it's probably likely it's going to be quite similar to a finance module and MBA at another university. So you can exempt the two, you can map. That's much more difficult at the DBA level. And also the DBA program builds on itself. So if you missed modules, it would be difficult and it would set you back. So you do need to start from the start. What kind of questions are expected in the DBA interview? You'll be asked about your personal statement, which will ask you about things like why you're doing a DBA and not a PhD, ask you about your career, ask you about your motivation for doing the program. Well, basically can ask you about anything on your application form, anything on your CV, whatever else, but it will focus on your research proposal. So after all those questions, in the interview, it's going to ask you in more detail about what you're wanting to research and how you're going to do it. So make sure you know your proposal well. Just a couple more. What happens if I miss the Dubai workshop? Well, the workshops are so important. We say do your very best to make it. But if you did happen for some reason, people do get ill or personal life interferes or something happens, you just can't make a workshop, the tutor will do their best to catch you up. And just the last question here, how many supervisors are assigned at the thesis stage? As I mentioned in the presentation, you'll have a director of studies who manages your studies, and then you'll have 2 supervisors. So plenty of support when you get to that thesis stage. Okay. Oh no, I've got one more from my son. Hang on. Let me see. And I've lost my. Don't worry, I'll get there eventually. Here we go. How are the assignments thesis assessed? Is it based on a pass, or fail, or specific grade? All of your modules, so your 6 modules that you do in the taught stage, are all just a pass or a fail. And if you happen to fail the first time, you get a chance to resubmit the assignment. So they're just a pass or a fail. Then when you get to the thesis stage and you do your 2-year thesis with your supervisors, you'll produce a 40,000 word thesis. And again, that can be, you can pass outright, or what happens with most people is they'll pass with minor corrections, which means the examination team will say, great, you passed, but I want you to go back and just fix a few things, and we'll give you a couple of months to do it. You don't do the Viva again, you just fix the corrections, and then it'll get signed off by the examiners. Or it could have major corrections, and there are some other outcomes as well. So at the thesis stage, it's a bit more difficult, but what you want to aim for is a pass, or a pass with minor corrections, is what most people get. Because you've got to remember at the thesis stage, your supervisors are going to tell you, if they think you're not going to pass, they're going to say don't submit. So, just remember that. It's very rare that people don't pass at the thesis because they wouldn't submit it unless their supervisors said that they think it's going to pass. So generally you're fine at that stage. Okie doke. Thanks everyone for your questions. I think that's probably covered them all. But if anything else does come to you, let me just find my email address. Nope, I have to go the other way. There we go. If you do have any other questions or that come to you in the meantime, do just drop me an email or give me a call, it's fine. I know that November seems a very long way away for the next intake, but it does take time to get proposals together, get your documents together. And also bear in mind, that's the start of the first workshop. The applications need to be in 6 to 8 weeks before that, because then they're assessed, an interview needs to be arranged and all of that. So it's far better to get all this done as early as possible. Don't leave it too late. Okay, everyone, thanks very much for listening. As I say, any questions, just let me know. Bye-bye.